Now they are forced to watch what they created. Narcissist after narcissist is being brought to the same unbearable place right now. They are being forced to watch the chosen one they tried to destroy rise beyond their reach. And if you are here listening to this message, it is because what was done to you is not being ignored by heaven. The people who lied on you, betrayed you, mocked your pain, and thought they had permanently damaged your future, are now entering the season where they must face exactly what their cruelty has created. This is the justice they never saw coming. They believed they could wound a chosen one and walk away untouched. They thought they could manipulate your heart, diminish your worth, and leave you carrying scars while they escaped consequence. That was their illusion. What they never understood is that when a narcissist attacks someone marked by God, they are not fighting an ordinary battle. They are setting in motion a reckoning that eventually turns back on them with multiplied force, and now that reckoning has begun. The deepest shock for them is not simply that karma has arrived. It is that the evidence of their downfall is standing right in front of them. You, stronger than ever, the chosen one they underestimated, is now the living proof that their betrayal failed. The very pain they inflicted became the doorway God used to elevate you. What they meant to crush has become the foundation of your rising. That is why they are unraveling. Because every blessing entering your life now becomes part of their punishment. Every open door, every victory, every visible sign of your peace forces the narcissist to confront a truth they cannot escape. The harm they caused did not destroy you. It exposed their own corruption and activated consequences for their own lives. This message is for every chosen one who has wondered if God saw what happened. He did. And now the narcissists who did you dirty are being made to sit in the front row. They are watching the outcome of what they created with their own hands. Their greatest torment is no longer hidden. It is seeing that the one they tried to bury is the one heaven has chosen to raise. Your rise has become their first karma. What breaks them first is not the collapse of their own lives. It is the sight of yours flourishing without them. That is the first true stroke of karma. Before anything begins to fall apart around them, they are forced to witness something far more devastating. Your rise. The chosen one they dismissed, betrayed, and cast aside is now walking in a level of peace and favor they cannot understand. For a narcissist, this is unbearable, because they survive on illusion. They needed to believe they were right about you, that you were weak, replaceable, and would never rise without them. But your life has shattered that lie. Every sign of your growth has become a judgment against them. Every blessing exposes how deeply they misjudged you. What torments them is not that you survived. It is that you became stronger after they tried to break you. They are watching doors open for you that never opened before. They see your confidence, your stability, your peace. The favor over your life is now impossible to deny. That is what makes this karma brutal. Your rise is happening in plain sight. They cannot ignore it. They cannot explain it away. And deep down, they know the truth they cannot admit. Your success is proof that they were the problem. That realization humiliates them. Because the more you rise, the clearer it becomes that losing them was your breakthrough. What they intended as abandonment became divine separation. What they thought would hurt you became the very thing that protected you. God removed what was draining you. He cut off what was blocking you. And now your life is revealing what He was doing all along. As it is written, the Lord knows their day is coming. That day begins the moment they are forced to watch you become everything they said you never would. That is their first karma. Before anything else happens, they must stand outside the life they lost and realize they are the reason they no longer belong in it. 1. The controlling narcissist is now trapped in his own collapse. There was a time when this narcissist moved through life with a quiet certainty. As long as they could control you, they were safe. They controlled how conversations ended. They controlled how much truth you were allowed to speak. They controlled your emotions, your reactions, even your silence. If you tried to stand firm, they pushed harder. If you pulled away, they tightened their grip. If you questioned them, they twisted reality until you questioned yourself. And for a while, it worked, because control gave them the illusion of power. But here is what they never understood, and this is where their collapse begins. Control is not power, it is fear. Fear of being exposed. Fear of losing dominance. Fear of facing who they really are when there is no one left to manipulate. That is why they needed you. Not because they valued you, but because you stabilized the version of themselves they were trying to maintain. You absorbed their chaos. You tolerated their behavior. You gave them a mirror they could distort. But the moment you stepped away, everything they built started to fall apart. Because you were never the weak one in that dynamic. You were the structure. And now that structure is gone. There is no one left to control. No one left to interrupt when they spiral. No one left to blame when things go wrong. No one left to project onto when their own reality starts closing in. And this is where the real karma begins. Not in public, not in loud consequences, but in private collapse. They sit in silence now, but it is not peaceful silence. It is the kind that echoes, the kind that brings everything back to them. Every moment they dismissed you, every time they overpowered your voice, every boundary they crossed as if it did not matter. It is all there, and for the first time, they cannot escape it. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "A proud man is always looking down on things and people, and of course, as long as you are looking down, you cannot see something that is above you." That is exactly what happened here. They spent so much time looking down on you, controlling you, correcting you, diminishing you, that they never saw what was above them. They never saw what God placed inside you. They never saw your growth. They never saw the moment everything was about to shift, and now they are the ones beneath, looking up, watching the person they once controlled become completely unreachable. That reversal is destroying them, because control only works when access exists, and you have removed access. You saw clearly. You stopped responding the same way. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped giving them the reactions they depended on, and without that, they lost their position. Now they are stuck in a reality they cannot manipulate. Their words do not carry the same weight. Their presence does not command the same influence. Their tactics do not produce the same results. And slowly, quietly, their identity begins to fracture. Because a narcissist without control has to face something they have avoided their entire life. Themselves. That is the prison. Not you leaving. Not circumstances changing, but being left alone with the truth. Proverbs 28:1 says, "The wicked flee when no one pursues." Notice that. No one is chasing them. No one is confronting them. And yet, they are restless. Because guilt does not need an audience, and truth does not need to be spoken out loud to be felt. They know, and that knowing is inescapable. Their life may still look intact from the outside, but internally, something has shifted. They are no longer stable, no longer certain, no longer in control. And every time they think about you, every time they see you moving forward, calm, grounded, untouched, they are reminded of the one thing they cannot undo. They lost control not because you became difficult, but because you became aware. And once a chosen one sees clearly, control is over forever. That is their karma. To live in a reality where the one person they once dominated is now completely beyond their reach, while they remain trapped inside the consequences of who they chose to be. 2. The one who turned away is drowning in regret. They were not always the loudest, not always the most controlling, but they made a decision that cut just as deep, if not deeper. They turned their back on you when it mattered most. And they did it while something inside them was quietly telling them not to. They felt it. They sensed that what they had with you was real. They recognized, even if only for a moment, that your presence carried something rare, something steady, something genuine, something God-placed. But instead of honoring that truth, they allowed outside voices to grow louder than their own discernment. They listened to opinions that did not understand you. They followed influences that did not carry your heart. They chose the easier path, the more comfortable path, the path that required less courage, and in doing so, they walked away from something they were never meant to lose. At the time, it did not feel permanent to them. They believed there would always be another moment, another chance, another opportunity to circle back and fix what they had broken. They assumed your patience would remain. They assumed your heart would stay open. They assumed your value would still be available when they were finally ready to recognize it. But that assumption was their greatest mistake, because while they delayed, God moved. While they hesitated, God separated. While they looked elsewhere, God closed the door behind you and began leading you forward into a life that no longer included them. And now they are standing in the aftermath of that decision. This is not loud karma. This is not sudden collapse. This is something far heavier. This is quiet regret that does not leave. It follows them into their mornings. It sits with them in silence. It rises in their thoughts when they least expect it. It shows up in the spaces where your presence used to be. And no matter how much they try to distract themselves, it does not disappear. Because regret rooted in truth cannot be silenced. They see you now. From a distance they cannot close. They watch your life continue without them. They see the stability you have built, the peace you now carry, the strength in the way you move. They see that you are no longer the same person they walked away from. There is a clarity in you now, a confidence, a boundary that was not there before. And that is what breaks them, because they know they contributed to that transformation. They know their absence became part of your growth. They know that in losing them, you found a version of yourself that no longer waits, no longer chases, no longer tolerates confusion or half-hearted presence. And now, they are the ones left waiting for a moment that never comes, waiting for a conversation that will never happen, waiting for an opportunity that has already passed. They replay it in their mind. The moment they chose to walk away, the moment they ignored what they felt, the moment they listened to the wrong voice instead of the truth in their spirit. And now they understand what that moment cost them. Luke 12:2 says, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed." For them, what is being revealed is not something about you. It is the full weight of what they lost, because now it is undeniable. You were not just another option. You were not someone temporary. You were not someone they could replace. You were the person God placed in their life for a reason, and they let that pass them by. That realization does not come all at once. It deepens over time. It grows heavier the more they watch you move forward without them. It becomes sharper when they realize that no one else carries what you carried. No one else gives what you gave. No one else feels like what you felt like. And by the time they fully understand it, it is already too late. If this speaks to you, if you have ever been the one someone walked away from only to realize your worth when you were no longer available, type 777 in the comments. A statement that you no longer wait for those who hesitate. A statement that you no longer return to those who walked away. A statement that you understand this truth now. Some people are not meant to come back into your life. They are meant to remember you and live with the decision they made for the rest of their lives. 3. The jealous false friend is watching her own life fall apart. This one did not always appear as an enemy. At one point, they stood close to you. They had access to your thoughts, your ideas, your plans. They heard your vision when it was still fragile. They saw your effort before it turned into results. They knew what you were building long before anyone else could recognize its value. And instead of protecting that space, they mocked it. They questioned your direction. They laughed at your ideas. They spoke about your dreams as if they were unrealistic, naive, or destined to fail. But underneath all of that was something far more dangerous than simple doubt. It was jealousy, a quiet, hidden resentment toward the light they could not carry themselves. They saw something in you they could not replicate. They sensed a drive, a focus, a calling that did not depend on approval or validation. And rather than grow, rather than support, they chose to diminish what they did not understand. They needed your vision to fail so they could feel comfortable staying the same. But it did not fail. And now they are being forced to watch the very thing they dismissed begin to thrive. This is where their karma begins to take shape. Because nothing is more difficult for a jealous heart than watching someone they underestimated succeed beyond expectation. They cannot ignore it. They cannot silence it. They cannot rewrite the story anymore. They remember what they said. They remember how they treated your ideas. They remember the way they made you question yourself. They remember the moments they stood in your presence, but secretly hoped you would not rise. And now they are confronted with the outcome. Your growth, your stability, your success. What you built without them has become undeniable. The work they mocked is now producing results. The path they discouraged has now led to doors opening. The consistency they overlooked has now turned into something they cannot replicate. And this is where the collapse begins. Because while they are watching you move forward, they are also watching their own life stall. The same energy they used to tear down what you were building has left them unable to build anything lasting for themselves. Every attempt feels scattered. Every effort feels incomplete. Every direction they pursue lacks the foundation your work now clearly has. They move from one thing to another, searching for something that will finally work, but nothing holds. Because what they lacked was not opportunity. It was alignment. They were never committed to growth. They were committed to comparison. And comparison cannot create anything sustainable. Now they are left in a position they cannot escape. They want access again. They want to come back into your space. They want to understand what you did. They want to learn how you built what they once mocked. But deep down, they know something has changed. They no longer belong in that space. Because the same person who once tolerated their presence has grown into someone who recognizes the cost of allowing the wrong energy too close. The same heart that once trusted freely now discerns carefully. The same mind that once shared openly now protects what God is building, and that door is no longer open. They can see what you have. They can admire it from a distance, but they cannot enter it. That is their karma. To watch the life they once laughed at become the life they wish they had, and to realize that their own actions are the reason they will never be part of it. 4. The one who used your kindness now needs what they lost. They came with need. They saw your heart. They saw your willingness to give, to help, to show up when others would not. They recognized that you were the kind of person who would extend yourself even when it cost you something, and instead of honoring that, they took advantage of it. They borrowed from your time. They leaned on your energy. They received your support when they were at their lowest. And when the moment came for them to stand with you in return, they disappeared. They went silent. They avoided responsibility. They left you to deal with the weight of what they owed, not just materially, but morally. They convinced themselves it was not that serious. They told themselves they would deal with it later. They believed your kindness would remain available, that your door would stay open no matter how they treated it. But time moved, and so did you. God did not allow you to remain in a position where your generosity was being misused. He began to show you the pattern. He opened your eyes to the imbalance. He made it clear that what you were giving was not being honored, and what you were receiving in return was not worthy of your spirit. So you stepped back. You closed access. And for the first time, they felt the absence of what they once took for granted. Now their situation has shifted. The same person who once had what they needed now finds themselves lacking again. The same circumstances that led them to you before have returned. But this time there is no safety net. There is no one stepping in to absorb the pressure. No one offering quiet support. No one extending themselves beyond reason. And suddenly, They remember you, not just as a person, but as a source. They remember what you gave. They remember how you showed up. They remember the stability you provided when they had none. And now they need it again. But this is where their karma reveals itself fully. Because they are now standing at the edge of a door they no longer have the right to open. They know what they did. They know they walked away without accountability. They know they left things unresolved. They know they treated your generosity as something disposable, and now they are faced with the reality that the very person they relied on is no longer accessible. This is not just loss, this is consequence. Because there is a difference between lacking resources and lacking access to the person who once provided them. One can be solved with time. The other is permanent. They may think about reaching out. They may rehearse what they would say. They may imagine an apology. They may hope that your nature has not changed. But deep down, they understand something has shifted in you. You are no longer the person who gives without discernment. You are no longer the person who allows your kindness to be exploited. You are no longer the person who confuses compassion with obligation, and that realization stops them, because they are not just afraid of rejection, they are aware of justice. Galatians 6:7 says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows." What they are reaping now is not cruelty, it is absence. The absence of the help they once received, the absence of the support they once ignored, the absence of the presence they failed to value. And there is nothing they can do to reverse it, because the moment they chose to walk away from accountability, they also walked away from access. Now they must sit in that reality. They must face situations alone that they once navigated with your help. They must carry burdens that you once lightened. They must find solutions in a space where your guidance is no longer available. And in that silence, in that struggle, one truth becomes undeniable. They did not just lose help. They lost the person God placed in their life to help them. And now that person is no longer theirs to reach. That is their karma. To need what they once had, and to realize it is gone for good. 5. Now they all wish they had left you alone. There is a moment in every karmic cycle when clarity arrives too late to change anything. This is that moment. All of them. The narcissist who tried to control you. The one who walked away. The jealous one who mocked you. The one who used your kindness. They have all reached the same realization, even if they never say it out loud. They should have left you alone, not because they suddenly became wise. Not because they finally understand your value in a pure way, but because they now see the cost of touching something God was protecting. They thought you were ordinary. They thought you were someone they could manipulate, dismiss, replace, or take advantage of without consequence. They believed your patience meant weakness. They believed your kindness meant accessibility. They believed your silence meant you would always remain within reach. They were wrong. What they were dealing with was not just a person, they were dealing with a chosen one. And when they crossed you, they unknowingly stepped into a battle that was never theirs to fight. Now they are living with the outcome of that decision. Each one in their own way. The controlling narcissist has lost control and cannot regain it. The one who turned away is drowning in regret they cannot escape. The jealous one is watching their own life stall while yours expands. The one who used you is now facing lack without access to your help. Different paths. Same conclusion. They all understand now that their actions did not just affect you. Their actions redirected their own lives, because if they had simply left you alone, everything would be different. They would not be standing outside your life watching from a distance. They would not be carrying the weight of missed opportunities. They would not be confronting the consequences now unfolding in their own reality. They would not be dealing with this level of loss. But they did not leave you alone. They interfered. They inserted themselves into your path with manipulation, betrayal, jealousy, or selfishness. They disrupted what God was building in you, thinking they had the authority to alter your direction. And that is where they made their greatest mistake. Because when someone interferes with what God is establishing, they are not stopping the plan. They are removing themselves from it. That is what happened here. Their actions did not block your destiny. They disqualified themselves from being part of it. And now they are forced to live with that truth. It does not come as one single realization. It comes in layers. It deepens over time. It becomes clearer the more they watch your life move forward without them. The more they recognize that nothing they have now replaces what they lost. There is no substitute for what you carried. There is no replacement for what you gave. There is no way to recreate the position they once had in your life. And that is what makes this realization so heavy. Because regret might allow someone to wish things were different, but it does not allow them to go back and change them. Ecclesiastes 3:15 says, God requires an account of what is past. That account is being settled now, but in the quiet, undeniable understanding that they cannot escape. They crossed a line they should have never crossed. They touched something they should have respected. They interfered with someone they should have honored. And now, standing on the outside of your life, watching you move forward into something greater, they carry a single thought that follows them everywhere. If only they had left you alone. But that moment has passed, and what remains is not opportunity, it is consequence. 6. As you walk into blessings, their karma fully begins. This is the part they never believed would come. They thought your pain would be the end of the story. They believed they could wound you and continue forward untouched. But the moment you truly step out of that old season, everything begins to shift, because karma does not fully activate while you are still entangled. It begins when God separates you, when you stop looking back, when your life starts opening in places they can no longer enter, when your peace becomes steady and your direction becomes clear. That is when the consequences they created begin to rise. And what makes this moment so powerful is the contrast. You are moving into blessing, they are moving into burden. Your life is becoming proof that God did not abandon you. Every closed door was protection, every ending was redirection. What felt like loss was God removing what could not go where He was taking you. Now that truth is visible. You carry a different peace, a different strength, a different clarity. And as your life begins to expand, their reality begins to tighten. The one who tried to control now feels their world slipping beyond their grasp. The one who walked away now lives with regret that does not fade. The jealous one sees nothing they build take root. The one who used you now faces lack without access to your help. As Scripture says, whatever a man sows, that shall he also reap. For a long time, it may have looked like they were getting away with everything. But God does not lose record. When the time comes, the outcome is exact. And now the difference is undeniable. Your life is moving forward. Theirs is weighed down by what they chose. You do not have to prove anything. You do not have to chase justice. God is making it visible through the direction of your life. That is why this shakes them, because your blessing is no longer hidden. It is clear, steady, and growing, and with every step you take, they are forced to face the truth. They helped create the separation that brought you here. They thought they were ending your rise. They were removing themselves from it. So let them watch. Let them watch the life they lost. Let them watch the peace they can no longer touch. Let them watch the future they disqualified themselves from. Because this is not your ending. This is your arrival. You are not walking into revenge. You are walking into restoration. And as you do, their karma fully begins.